From the trunk of her car to wandering around in a cemetery, and now to the Sussex County Courthouse. It's day one of the trial for one of the accused in the case of the capture and carjacking of Margaret Smith. Good Monday evening. I'm Paul Butler.
And I'm Alice Bavis, in for Steve Hammond tonight. This is WBOC News at 6. A 90-year-old woman stuffed in the trunk of her own car for 48 hours, then dumped in a secluded cemetery. That's what happened to Margaret Smith of Lincoln back in March of 2013. And
now the trial against one of the alleged suspects is underway. Now, Smith says she was abducted by two young girls, Junia McDonald, who was 14 years old at the time, and Jacqueline Perez, who was 15 years old. And the state says when those girls picked up two other boys, two 17-year-old boys, Rondaiges, Harper, and Philip Brewer. After 2 days, Smith was let out of the trunk and police found her wandering in a cemetery on Calvary Road in Seaford.
Sussex County Bureau Chief Evan Koslof joins us live at the courthouse where day one for the trial for Harper started today. And Evan, he is now 19 years old.
And the state and defense agree that Harper was actually not there for the initial incident of carjacking and kidnapping, but the state argues that he was very much aware that Smith was in the trunk, and yet he did nothing. There was an added police presence at the Sussex County Courthouse today as a van from the Department of Corrections brought Rondaiges Harper, seen here, to the courthouse for his first day of trial. Harper, who wore a gray DOC prison garb, watched on as the state called more than 8 witnesses to the stand. In opening statements, prosecutor Casey Ewart painted the picture of Smith's suffering after being left at the cemetery. "It's cold, it's dark, and she was stumbling around looking for help," she said. But defense attorney John Brady urged the jury to take caution when making judgments. He admits his client did do some wrongdoing, but says he wasn't the main perpetrator. He emphasizes that his client wasn't even there when the kidnapping took place. He told the jury they need to, quote, figure out what bad things his client did, saying it's not all the state said he did. A key witness, the state called Betty Edwards to the stand. She was at the cemetery that cold morning when Smith wandered out of the woods. She had no shoes on, she said, and she could barely walk. The state also called various state troopers, a doctor, and in an especially emotional moment, the niece of Smith. She talked about seeing her beloved aunt in the hospital. She just kept going over what had happened to her, she said. They'll be back Tuesday morning as Smith herself is expected to take the stand. Now, one other interesting thing that happened today in the courtroom was that the judge actually had to call a break. That's because Harper started to show signs of a seizure that was coming on to him. And there's a defense attorney actually tells me that he's since been arrested, had multiple seizures. So that's something that we're going to be paying attention to in the courtroom. Reporting live in Sussex County, this is Evan Koslof, WBOC News in Georgetown.